Welcome to the podcast. This is from Duendelvin. This is Jeff, Kyle, and today we're going to be talking about the Thillinee Empire. Thillinean?
Yes.
Oh.
Thillinee?
It's-
Is it pronounced different than how it's spelled?
The Thillinee Empire.
Okay.
Yeah, you said
It's
Thillinean. Thillinean. The Thillinean Empire.
When you're in Rome,
You're Roman.
So if you're in the Thillinee, if you're in
Thillinean.
Thillinee, you are Thillinean.
And if you're a member of the Thillinee,
You said
you're
Thillinean.
the
Alright. Anyways, welcome.
That's not Pujapa. The map is outdated. Hi guys.
Hello. So, who are the Thillas?
The Thillineans.
So our issue is that it's spelled differently on the map and in the
In the notes.
and in the other notes. It's all spelled differently in all the different
We have
places.
3 different spellings.
So let's go with Thillinee.
It's the Thillinese.
The Thillinees. Okay.
Okay. What are they? Who are they? Why are they?
Who, what, when, where, how, and why are the
Okay,
Thillinees?
which one do you want to know?
Yes.
Let's
Okay.
start with where.
Where are they?
Where are they? Remember Garthia?
Yeah, the big one?
So it's on the same continent. So the Thillinee Empire rules the continent that Garthia is on. So
But they don't rule Garthia.
they don't rule Garthia.
Do they rule the land Garthia's on?
Nope.
No.
Garthia is a city and a state and a nation unto itself.
Isn't it, I think the same way. I mean, it's way, way, way bigger than.
Barelthion. Sorry.
No,
You went Rome.
yeah. Oh my goodness! What is the place in the middle of Rome called?
The
Why am I
Colosseum?
drawing a blank? No. The city-state inside of Rome, where the Pope lives.
The Vatican.
The Vatican. Thank
There
you.
we go.
The Vatican is its own country.
I'm gonna die.
It's technically its
Sorry,
own
guys.
country, and it is not ruled by the Italians.
Nope.
Even though it is inside of Rome.
It is the Catholics' own nation,
Right.
effectively.
And so Garthia, while it's significantly bigger, is built the same way. It is on the landmass owned by the Thillinee Empire, but it is not controlled by the Thillinees.
Alright.
So,
I feel like there's a
Who
bees
are-
nuts joke in every single time I say Thillinees.
Thillinee
we're. I'm just gonna throw this out there. I
Throw it out
have
there.
2 things I want to throw out there, and then we'll get into the depths of it. Number 1, last week we talked about the Podalayan Empire.
Yep.
We talked about how there wasn't conflict between the nations. So there isn't conflict between
The different empires.
the empire that rules the continent of Alakaya, which is the Podalayan, and Antropa, which is the Thillinee Empire. Those 2 empires don't war with each other. However, we are building small factions that go on the continents that will still war with them. So it's not peaceful. But the 4 main empires that we're going to cover in this series, the 4 main empires, do not war against each other.
They're
Right.
not allowed to.
The
So
war
the
against
continent of-
themselves?
Huh?
The war against themselves?
Well, not against themselves, but if you think about it, the landmass of Alakaya is the largest in the world, but it is larger than the Euro-Asian continent. So, like Asia and Europe, that whole continent, Alakaya is bigger than that. It's not like there's going to be one nation with 7 cities and nobody else exists, right? So we're building the smaller factions and everything. I mean, the distance between Brexis and Unalesca, which is its closest town that it owns, is like 750 miles. right?
Bernarga.
So I mean that's literally like if you drove from Denver, Colorado to Kansas City, Missouri, and there was nothing in between at all, right? And that's the closest town. And there's only 5 major highways? No, there's way more. So I just wanted to cover that real quick, that there is other things going on in the nation. What we are doing is covering the nation that rules the continent, technically. There's still warring tribes and stuff like that go on, and small cities and everything.
You'll have land grabs, moves for power, attempts to make themselves more known. All of those things will happen.
Thank you.
So it gives you a lot of opportunity to create conflict and build your world and play in that world by providing the opportunity and space for people to customize their desires.
Yeah, there's so much space to just input your own little city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've done it a few times.
We've definitely done it a few times.
And then the second thing that I'm going to say is we have some done for the Thillinee Empire. So we are actively building how to play the role-playing game, and like there's a lot going on, and so we have some of it, so you will get to experience some of the actual world building today. So we will be making decisions live about the Thillinee Empire today.
Which gives you a really cool opportunity to put your questions or comments in the chat and then maybe incorporated.
Dave's doing it now.
Sweet. I always like Dave's input, so anything you gotta add to us. Okay, so
Dave's a very impressive world builder, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. So, to answer your who, what, when, where, why. So it's on the same continent as Garthia, right? It's a empire ruled by a king or queen, depending on who's in charge at the time. They're militaristically the most powerful nation on the planet, so they have a really, really good military. The original founders of Duendelvin, the capital of the Thillinee Empire, were two Samgatu and a goblin who had survived the fall. So like the war, the board game wars. We're going to have to change that. Nope, they didn't survive the fall. So they would have survived the destruction.
Yep.
The affirmation.
Well, they would have survived through rebirth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rebirth. So they survived the affirmation period.
Yep.
Is what we're going to put.
Because if they survived the fall, the goblin is far too old at that point in time.
Way too old.
He would be
hundreds of years old.
Beyond venerably dead.
It's 2 cats and an urn.
They're carrying around the ashes of a little guy, and they whisper to it, and it whispers back.
So,
well, I mean,
so that provides them a lot of knowledge in building an army. I mean, the Samgatu and then the
goblins.
trader.
Yep, equip it.
So you have somebody who's a master crafter, and then military strategists started the Thillinee Empire.
And they didn't have, so they had Garthia being constructed, right? Thinking about taking right after the affirmation, the council's being held. Garthia is where that spot is, where the Horakai bring the people together and say, "Hey, listen or else." And so then you have that happening, and the rest of the continent was kind of left to their own devices. So they'd have to strengthen themselves up. They didn't have the halfling caravanners to protect them like Alakaya did. They had to marshal up their own forces and step way outside and start working together more aggressively much sooner.
Yeah. So most of the citizens in the Thillinee Empire feel very safe, and while they're mostly poor, they feel as though they would not be as protected elsewhere. New ruler is chosen by the previous ruler and hold as much authority in government, but also have a council of elected officials. So it's somebody in charge who relies on his or her council. But this would be, which is weird because Garthia is the richest place on the planet, and then the Thillinee Empire is the poorest place on the planet.
They're right next to each other.
They're right next to each other. They're right up on top of each other.
It kind of makes sense.
Yeah. The people in the Thillinean Empire, like Thillinee.
The Thillinee Empire. We're not Thillinean. Yeah.
Thillinean Empire. They feel safe, right? So in this situation, they have given up liberty for safety.
Yep.
And they're okay with that because they could leave if they didn't want it.
True. That is the thing they can do. They're not required to check in everywhere.
Right. And yeah, did I say Kettling? Did you say Kettling?
I haven't said that yet, but
Nobody said kettling.
Kettling is their patron deity. It's like every kind of god has taken, or every empire has taken on a aspect of the gods. One of them to be kind of their guiding light as to how they govern, and Thillinee is justice. That's Kettling.
Is Garthia
Garthia is all.
all? Okay, I
Yep.
thought it was like Thillinee.
Garthia is a seat of power for all of them, so it's represented equally.
If there is
Okay.
conflict that cannot be resolved,
Then it's
then they default to Thillinee because he is the head of the gods. And so that's how that would function.
how do Thillinee and Garthia get along? That's a good question. So, how to put this right? So,
Ian, I hate to ask, can you turn the monitor a little bit?
oh, we're gonna have some technical shenanigans happening. All right.
No. Just so I can see it. Or Corbin has to ask that. I
Yeah,
guess Corbin
you
just
want to
has
ask the
to
question.
All right, Thillinee. How does the Thillinee and Garthia get along?
They actually done really well. I know the Thillinian Empire, like the king and queen, would want some of the wealth that's there, but they also understand that that's not their wealth. They're besides their money goes into strengthening and maintaining their military,
Mhm.
which is goofy because it also means there's a lot more conflict in between, and I feel like that we totally the inner turmoil in the continents and how things happen. The Thillinees would be dealing with that more frequently, so their representations would be more fluctuating. You'd have empires or small city-states, right? Small factions rise and fall pretty aggressively because they're very militaristic in nature. So Thillinee is more concerned about maintaining its stability than it is about what Garthia is doing.
Right.
So
Well, then-
they just don't really interact.
People go there all the time.
No, they absolutely. Everybody interacts with
They
them.
don't.
But so Garthia has this military force and this wall that's impregnable.
The only
right?
wall that comes close to it is Kungan.
Well, Kungan would be a better wall, but it's not
not
Movable.
inhabited anymore.
Yeah, you can't
I mean,
fly it yet.
Still can't fly
So,
Kungan.
so our
The dwarves can.
getting along isn't really the right way to put it. I mean, that's like if you think about Garthia in the same way that you think about all the other nations, that's a good question, right? But it's not. That would be like saying, like in this instance, it would be like if
How does DC get along with the rest of the states around it, kind of deal? Like, how does DC get along with everything? That's kind of
that's
what I
not
picture.
really that either, because so Garthia is like the seat of like
So is
the
DC.
Horakai, but it's also the seat of all the trade. And so nobody goes to war with them because they exist like in their own realm. It would be as though I wanted more land, and so I want to go fight the people who make food. Like I'm not like that's their whole thing. They just make weapons and food and stuff like that. So I'm not gonna fight them. So Garthia is essentially impregnable, but nobody would want to anyway. I mean, they're established, their land, all that kind of stuff. So your warring tribes that are trying to take over that want Nueldazan or Torgan or whatever they want, wouldn't go to Garthia.
Nope.
Nobody's gonna fight Garthia because they're just the trade people.
There's also the aspect of fear. That is the seat of the gods, and
Right.
the gods just shattered the world into continents which had never existed previously. The last thing you want to do is roll up into the house where God sits and be like, "Hey, bro, I'm here to take over.
Right.
I'm gonna kick over your chair and I'm
My
gonna sit.
chair now."
Yeah, and I'm gonna sit in it, build my own chair." So yeah, that's the other thing that kind of keeps them from messing
Yeah.
with Garthia is that's where everyone travels there. It's Switzerland. It's neutral ground.
That's it. Yeah.
That's what
Everyone
That's a
likes
good way to
them.
put it.
Well, they have to because you also got oh gosh, it's not what is the name? Like I screw this up every time. It's not Ecclesiarch.
The vessel.
The Vassalarch. Yep, it's also the Vassalarch. They're the ones that kind of dictate to the world their purpose and
Right.
give people function, and everyone travels there.
Yeah.
So everyone, even though they are citizens of their own nation, has visited and has a peace and a love for Garthia as well.
And you would piss off the whole world.
Yeah, you
If the gods didn't respond, you'd piss off
you piss off the whole world.
So, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, ask another one.
Yep.
Ian behind the seat has a question. If the Empire, if conflict happens, is the default solution the god the Empire follows?
Yes.
Okay.
if you are dealing with something like there's an issue happening, the laws in Thillinee are geared towards the lens of justice. This is also, we talked about this a little bit. That's where the protectorate, most of them are Kettling followers, and that's where you're going to have them deploy from. So with this also being the most militaristic and warlike, it makes sense that the protectorate would be here, home based out, and then deploy aggressively across the world to ensure that contracts are followed.
Mm-hmm. So
Did someone ever try to take over their home base?
That would be a terrible idea.
In Nueldazan?
Let's go fight the protectorate.
Fight the protectorate in Nueldazan.
And no one wants to take over that job. Let's think about that. Like, to destroy that would be to destroy contract law, which effectively is, other than
Would
the gods'
piss off
law,
the world.
would again piss off the world. But then someone would have to take on that role. No one else wants it because it's awful. If you have someone who puts down there, like on their contract, I will, if I default, you get to kill my firstborn child. Who wants to have to go and have to roll the punishment on that?
Right.
Nobody wants that. That's a terrible job.
And it's not the same as like when the Romans were taxing their city-states elsewhere back in Roman times, when they would, the tax collectors were like, well, this is what's going to Rome and this is what's coming to me.
Yep.
If I wrote a contract and it said, if I fail to pay my dues, right, then you get to
Exact some kind of punishment.
right,
Yeah.
take, these things, you get my earbasol, right? Let's just say that's the case. If I don't pay my dues, you get to take my earbasol. Now, the protectorate would show up, take the earbasol and nothing else.
Yep.
Like, they don't get anything out of it other than that they are exacting the punishment of the law. They don't get anything out of it. They don't get special treatment. They don't get a piece of the pie. They don't get extra funds. You can't pay them off.
No.
Like, it's just...
It just is.
Well, to some
authority
extent,
is-
they would get some special treatment, considering that is their job. You'd get out of the way for them to let them do it.
You would allow them.
Because if you get in the way of that, that's a problem.
You are then impeding on justice and spitting in the eye of one of the tenets of the Horakai. Because they are there to exact. So yeah, you wouldn't want to spit in the eye of the Horakai.
Don't get in the way.
They would do it.
Yeah, I was wondering what that me was for.
Well,
Are you taking over the protectorate,
No.
Dave?
He's like, I would do it.
We got
Well,
Dave's
why
Movie
wouldn't we
Emporium
just join it?
and Dave's Protectorate.
Right. See, and that, I think, and that brings up a good point. While Dave would be part of it, the real question is, would he overthrow it in order to run it, or would he be part of it?
Would you just move into
Right.
the
Would
top?
you join
So
or would you
anybody
take
who wanted
over?
to be part of it would just join it.
Yep.
There wouldn't be any need to overthrow it. Absolutely.
All right, so you want to ask Ian's question?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
trying to
question
formulate a
for us.
question, an answer. That's not my job. Okay, do some people fight the protectorate from exacting punishment on yourself?
There would be conflict.
Yeah.
Absolutely, people are going to fight back. If they're default and they don't want to pay what they owe, people are going to fight.
Well, but then there's a chance the gods come down and smite thee.
There's always a chance that you just pay the gods. That's a possibility. I mean, we're also behind the
That's why you
curtain.
roll the d20.
Behind the curtain, big picture. They don't care.
They really don't.
They really don't care.
No, but from your perspective,
From the protectorate,
going
someone
against it
living-
is what brings the gods upon
Yes,
you.
but still fighting against them. If the Vassallaric Protectorate can't handle this, like if you hired a mercenary group and you lied to that mercenary group and said, "Hey, yeah, I need your help. These people come to take it." This mercenary group sees, "Oh, this is a Vassallaric Protectorate? Nah, bro, we out. Contract null and void because you tried to hire us under false pretenses. Not
You
happening."
lied for personal gain.
Exactly. Then you broke a tenant. It's not happening. Like, unless you found a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who were willing to do some shenanigans. And I mean,
But see, that's the tricky part of our world. It doesn't matter. If I did it in bad faith, it doesn't matter if I lied for personal gain. None of it matters. You signed the contract.
yep.
So you'd have to go against the
That
protectorate.
supersedes the tenants.
Except for if the contract was written that you were here to help protect me from an individual, but it was not specified who the individual was, that is kind of your fault. But then they also, you have the capability to break that because they did not in good faith enter into the contract with you with openness. That's grounds for breaking potentially.
potentially.
if you
But
can
that's where
contract
because
law and
contract law
justification.
supersedes.
And
all
this
the
is
other
where the
laws.
game gets tricky.
Right. So because it supersedes everything else, it's like, well, it doesn't matter that I did this wrong because that's a lesser wrong than you breaking our contracts.
This is what happens when you don't specify the rules.
If you're not good at contract law, it can get you in trouble.
And that's one of the things that probably wouldn't happen very often because people are like, I'm not signing a contract unless there's a lot of specifics.
Yep.
All right, Dave is asking, wondering if there's like a domestic terrorists or malcontents, right?
So yeah, we have cultists that follow other gods, and that's a big bad no-no that still exists. I mean, because at this point in time, we still got
Vega.
we've got dirtbag Ayala going around preaching the word of Vagog and building small cults. You've got the Knights of End of Days who are out there legitimately still following Vagog, being absolutely bat-nuts crazy, eating people, and causing mischief.
Consuming their life force.
Yeah, they don't actually cannibalize. Well, some of them actually cannibalize, but that's the part of their psychosis.
They're weird.
Yes.
They're
Anybody
broken.
following Vagog Vagog would be
Honestly, any of the
in
gods.
that way.
Parbulkanian worship would be absolutely considered a no-no.
But they wouldn't be terrorists.
They could be if they were trying to overthrow the... Like, it depends on the behavior of the individual and the
Veritus Sanctus is unheard of. Literally.
Which is really funny because one of
But
their
if they followed
sons...
the Comitai or the Coriatii or
Yep.
the Immortuum, any of those, yeah. I don't see a group of people following the sprites.
No. Unless
I
you're...
don't see that being the
if
thing.
you're a builder, you would be very impressed with their skill sets and worship that aspect of
I don't
them.
know that you would worship them.
Sprites bless me with this building.
I mean, that would be kind of wild to invoke the sprites and they come down and build for you. Why not? Why not? Why not have like a group of masons who are very discreetly and quietly like sprite worshippers?
And they're like the most
Send
extravagant
it.
builders, and they're the
Canon.
Canon now. You've got
Now
like
we have the sprite followers.
the sprites, the spritists.
the sprite.
But they wouldn't be it. They wouldn't be.
They would not be terrorists.
No, they would weaponize construction. You would go to sleep one night and then wake up and there's a wall around your building.
Like brownies.
Yeah.
Dang it.
But yes, there would
They would be
because
malcontents.
there are. While the Horakai push the narrative that we are the gods, there are other gods, and technically, in the lineage of gods, you have Dizaktos,
Parbulkan,
Parbulkan, and Veritus Sanctus, who are trying to earn their Dizaktos. Vagog, who's trying to erase it all. They're all the greater gods. And then you have the lesser gods, which are the Comitai, the Immortuum, the Sprites, and the Coriatii. And then you have the construct gods, which are the Horakai and the Shimbare. So in the lineup of gods, the Horakai are actually on the bottom end of the gods. And so if they were like, no, we're gods, and then somebody was like, yeah, but we're following the Comitai, Thillinee's not going to do anything.
Nope. No, because he doesn't
He
want
ain't going to step in.
Nah,
So
that's gonna be bad. But if something gets to on occasion, every so often, they're gonna unleash a dragon to go and express their displeasure to instill fear and chaos into the world.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that you piss off the spritists. Don't piss them off. You're gonna wake up and there's gonna be a wall, and you're gonna be stuck in there for days.
You're gonna get a cask of Amontillado. You're gonna get walled up into a
And it's gonna be a pretty wall.
very pretty wall. Oh, we got a question coming in.
Are the sprites capable of combat, and would they protect from the Horakai?
Heck no. Sorry. They wouldn't
the
protect
sprites
from the Horakai.
They wouldn't protect, no.
No,
But
they
yes, they are capable of combat.
aren't they pretty single track minded?
They are
building?
like a giant hive mind.
Yeah.
They are ants.
We're
Okay.
actually introducing them in the destruction.
They're a playable
They're
race.
a playable race.
A rayable place.
All of the gods will be playable.
You can play the Horakai, the Comitai, the Immortuum, the Horakai, the Shimbare. All of them come to play. And the fun part's going to be balancing them to make sure they also play really well with the rest of the races. Well, I mean, with the Horakai, the balances, there's only 4.
Still,
Yeah.
the 2 times we played with the Horakai, they just erased everything.
Well, it's because, we gave
But
them...
yeah, they have the weapons.
Well, specifically, they have 20... They get, 30 talent points. They can max everything out right out the box.
I think,
like
well,
that.
they can max 3 of the 4.
3 of the 4, yeah. So they can...
and they get 2 talent. They all get 2 actual abilities. So like you could have one that's a fire mage and a healer. And then,
Will there be,
Yeah, so-
or have you missed an episode on Lesser Gods? Knew about Dad, Brothers, Vagog, and the Horkai and Shimbari.
We kind of talked about. We had the Horkai talked about with.
Didn't we in the creation episode?
Yeah, in one of the creation episodes, we talked about the Horkai and where they came from.
Well,
and-
no, he's asking for the Komatai and the.
Oh,
Stripes,
yeah.
Coriatii and the Immortum.
They've all
We
been...
talked about that during the creation. Yeah, we talked about, but we didn't really get into their culture, the dynamics, or their behaviors.
You're right. We glossed over them.
Hardcore.
Okay.
So we can definitely,
Put it on the list.
yeah, we'll put it on the list. Maybe we'll do an extra episode on the wings and have it ready to go.
Yeah.
We have 2 more empires to cover, and we do 2 episodes a week. So the next series, we could go a quick shout out to the different lesser gods for Dave.
All right.
Heck yeah.
Dave's Lesser God.
No. It's so good.
Alrighty.
We didn't even get into the cities today. We're gonna have to get more into the deets. Yeah,
There's not a ton of them, aren't there? I mean, they keep popping up and down.
that's the issue.
What are the
It's
main ones that stick around?
Well, we'll talk about it
in the next episode?
We'll release
Okay.
it on Thursday. We'll have all that information.
Yep.
So
We'll get into the
yeah.
specifics.
we have like 4 minutes left. Dave, do you have any other questions? Are you
Or-
the only one on right now?
Yep.
Sweet. Do you want to add anything to him?
I mean, we get into
Happy for your
the
input.
specifics coming up.
Yeah,
later.
we're glad you're here.
Absolutely, it's great to see you back, man. I'm glad you're able to pop in on this one.
And now that they're only 30 minutes long, maybe you can more.
But I'm trying to think what else we've got with the Thillinees, because the warlike, they follow Kettling. The Vassal Arc Protector is effectively their major export.
And
They
there's a
would have-
lot on their continent that you just don't touch in fear of pissing off the world.
Well, you don't touch Garthia.
Don't touch Garthia, don't touch the Protectorate.
You kind of don't want to touch the Protector. That's kind of the idea. Again, but also you're talking about hardened individuals who will do whatever is necessary to continue to
Well,
exact
if you
justice.
go after the Protector and then don't fill their shoes, everyone's going to be mad at you.
But nobody ever does.
Nobody ever does. Like, no one ever wants.
Well, yeah, there's no point to.
Exactly.
It's like, why?
It is like, why? Why would we do this? It doesn't make sense.
The
There's no wealth.
Protectorate exists
There's no gain.
without somebody trying to take over their job or destroy them.
Oh.
They exist until Duendelvin takes them out in the Age of the Goblins.
And we can end on this
Right.
question because this is a good one.
Okay, Dave's asking, is there a way to challenge the leadership in the Thillinee? Can you challenge the matriarch like how the goblins used to choose a leader?
So, I don't know. Like, it's some Gatu, because it's some Gatu cultures too as well. Like, if you were not capable of doing your job, you could get called out and replaced, and that's why they actually introduced the games, so that they would stop killing each other. So you could challenge a matriarch or a patriarch. In this case, if some Gatu will be a matriarch to replace them. That wouldn't be unheard of,
Well,
but
based on the way that they live, the Thillinee Empire, the leader chooses the next leader.
which doesn't always mean lineage or bloodline. It's
Right.
the most
And so
valuable and effective.
You wouldn't challenge the king
You would
to a
challenge.
duel or to his spot in leadership. You would choose. You would.
Bless you.
Excuse me. You would challenge the predecessor.
Yep.
So if I were the king and I was choosing you to be the predecessor, but Ian wanted to be, Ian would challenge you for the right to step into the next in command.
And if you
So-
failed in that challenge,
there
then it
it
would
would-
show that you weren't worthy to be the predecessor, and that's why it would be honored. Because then, if unless you show yourself to be a cheat, a dirtbag, or something like
Right.
that, the claimant would still be yours.
Well, and I could say no. You don't get to challenge that.
But there had
But-
to be a viable reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, logically, it would happen that somebody would say, "Hey, I think I would make a better leader," and whoever the king or queen is at the time. If it was a king, probably would let it be a hand-to-hand combat challenge, and if it was a queen, it would most likely be more of
A games
a
challenge.
games challenge, especially if it was some Gatu. It would definitely be a game challenge.
They would
So-
pull out their 4-person chess mode.
And if it was a human, it would hardcore be
A battle.
a battle of wills.
It'd also
It's just-
potentially be a political maneuvering because they're going to try and outmaneuver their opponent through political shenanigans and also by showcasing their capability through commercial, martial, whatever their calling or focus was.
So all right.
Challenging-
let's,
So if it's a human or a female Sungatu, you gotta put your thinking cap on.
Pretty much, yeah. A goblin, dwarf, like any other male, would be more straightforward of a conflict. I think actually a dwarf would be a
How would the
Convention
Minotaurs
well,
do
and
it?
it still would have to be based on ruling an empire.
Yep.
You know, and so
who thinks they can do better, who's been trained for it, and that's the other thing. If you're chosen to be the next leader, you are groomed for that position. You are being taught. You are being prepared for that, and it's not just gonna be one person. It could be a group of individuals who are elect choices that are being raised and reared to prepare to run the empire.
It's a batch of cookies, and you just take the best one.
Effectively, yeah. And so you would even have conflict within the goodness
council.
gracious. Yeah, the council and the elected, the selected. Oh my gosh, there's words and I can't think of them. Anyway, the people who are chosen to rule next, that class of individuals, like in that grouping, would compete with each other to make sure that they stand out in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And what's going on at the times is going to determine, like, are we having a whole lot more conflict than normal? We needed someone more aggressive physically, then a lot more combat function is going to be the choice. Or, hey, are we struggling even in our meager commerce? Do we need to focus on that? And that's what's going to make the difference as far as who gets chosen and for what purpose.
All right, we got one more question.
Oh, heck yeah.
What would happen if the predecessor and the leader were both killed somehow? The tip dogs would game for it.
Top dogs.
Top god.
The
tip dogs.
top. I like it.
well, this would fall to a decision because there's no voting
Nope.
in the Thillinee Empire. So this would fall to whoever was technically the next. So the council would make that decision, right? And so in order to have it end up being a vote, you'd have to kill the king,
the queen,
predecessor, and the council, or whoever the ruler is.
in order to enter a secession war, or if you tried to disagree with the council's decision, then there would be war, or like there'd be the potential for a secession war if that was something that's happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Garthia would even because we're talking about Garthia does better when the continent that it's on is not in turmoil. Obviously, they had the entire northeastern peninsula covered, and no one really goes up there because that's all Garthian land.
Right.
But that would still be an impediment to their purpose. Because if there's bandits set up on the road or armies marching on the roads, and people can't come to Garthia to get their god covenant.
Yeah.
There's going to be
You're
a
also
problem.
talking about a nation that was designed by two Sungatu and a goblin.
Yep.
There would be contingencies.
It's there.
That question would be asked by the current leader. What happens if you and your predecessor are killed?
My
Well,
guess,
here's my answer.
not my guess, my function would probably be that they would have a hidden documentation that would be released to a trusted individual that's sealed by the king or by the ruler that says this is my response to this situation happening. And it would be a consistent go through, and that's contract law, and it would be
Canon.
bound. Yep.
You give out chocolate
That's
bars,
what-
and the
that's
people
how
who
they
get the
do it.
golden tickets.
we will Wonka it.
I'm willing to do that.
No, that's the closest one to that would be the chosen by the dragon.
Hey, call over Zayox Dragon. He'll just pick someone.
Chaos Dragon chooses. You got your golden ticket. Oh man. All right. This is a good one. So this is kind of how it goes when we do world building. We just kind of talk about this is what it was, this is where it came from, and then we kind of fill in the gaps. So it's a really cool insight behind the curtain.
So Thursday, come back. We will not be live, but we will be releasing the cities.
Yep.
I
But
know
don't
you guys can't see that.
Give the
This is
screen
my notes.
protector.
but don't feel
They're my notes.
don't be afraid to ask questions in the notes. We will check those and respond.
I always check the comments to see if anything popped up that I haven't answered yet, and we can always answer those questions.
Yeah,
if
we get-
nothing got answered.
Crazy stuff like Dave's Protector and Dave's Moo Emporium and the Spritists.
The sprightest today. Oh man.
I can't
Like
stop
check on
thinking of the soda.
Heck yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.
2 p.m.
Much appreciated.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Eastern
yeah.
Standard Time.
1 p.m.